What's up, guys, and welcome back to Heel Report, which is a part of TarHeal247.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones joining me from Kenan Stadium. I actually just got back from Kenan Stadium not too long ago as well after Carolina's 32-25 loss to Duke. Duke improving to 6-5 on the year, 5-2 in league play. Carolina dropping to 4-7, 2-5 in the ACC. And AJ, I mean, we're going to break this game down as we always do, but I think there's a couple places to start, but I want to start with special teams and penalties, and then we'll talk more about the defense in our second thing, because I think obviously that played a pretty big factor in how the final score ultimately ended up tonight. But I mean, man, you just look at the special teams. You had the rough and the kicker resulted in a touchdown on that later in that drive. You had the fake field goal late in the game, which Duke ultimately ended up scoring on that drive as well, going for two. And then earlier in the game, you had Carolina come out, hot start, come out of the gates flying, march down the field, score. Like, okay, this is nice. This is a good start for North Carolina, especially for an offense that has struggled mightily. And what does Carolina do on the next possession? Special teams on the kickoff lets them run 40 yards or so. They get the ball at the 50-yard line, end up scoring on that drive. And then you had the curious decision to come out of the halftime locker room with the onside kick. It doesn't even go 10 yards. Duke again starts around the 50-yard line. Duke scores on that drive. So, AJ, indirectly, and it's indirectly essentially, but 29 points off of four, I think you could call special teams mistakes tonight. Want to start there, and then you can throw the penalties in as well, which obviously hurt Carolina too. 12 penalties, 103 yards for the Tar Heels. We're going to talk about defense making some mistakes tonight, but man, you're walking away from this game, AJ, and I think a lot of ways, and this is what football teams that are struggling tend to do. They like to shoot themselves in the foot. That's why you struggle and have a bad season. It felt like another example of that tonight where, especially in special teams, and especially when it came to a lot of disciplinary things on the penalty side, just a lot of self-inflicted wounds once again from the Tar Heels.
Duke lined up to kick field goals twice, snapping the ball from the 29 on a 4th and goal, and on the 27 late in the game, and ended up scoring 2 touchdowns right afterward, accumulating only 15 yards of offense. Mm-hmm. So you have the roughing the kicker on the missed field goal.
Yeah, he missed it. That's a good point. That was a 7-point swing right there, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, well, more than that in a lot of ways.
That's
but Duke comes out with an interesting set with 4 additional offensive linemen, and Carolina was a little confused by it. Andrew Simpson said, and Duke had a wide open touchdown to the tight end like right away. So that was right after the roughing the kicker, and then of course the fake field goal. And I was talking to one of the Duke writers, and he said that Todd Polino, the Duke kicker, said that they actually had the fake called on 3rd down if they didn't get it. And they would go into it, and they had basically 2 things there. They had seen something on film last week from Carolina in the Wake Forest game, and they saw the same thing earlier when Carolina came after the field goal that led to the roughing of the kicker. Carolina was in the exact same set. Okay, they were in the exact same call against the field goal, and that's where the tag was. Okay, we're going to stay with the fake here, and they got 27 yards down to the 1 or 26 yards down to the 1 and then scored. So Duke outwitted Carolina. They schemed, they scouted and schemed. Carolina did not adjust in how it went about it. I was really surprised that there was nobody on the edge there for Carolina. This is a team that has been really good in special teams up until the last couple of weeks. They brought in a highly respected special teams coordinator, an NFL guy. Belichick's that guy. And when we saw the practices that we had a chance to watch back in August, every time I saw Belichick working with the special teams. I saw him working with punt protection one time. So there's a lot of attention paid to it. But whereas other areas of the team have improved some during this season, and I say some, the special teams in the last 2 weeks has let them down because they had 2 field goals blocked last week. Mm-hmm. That could have been very crucial in the outcome, because I think the end of the game is handled differently if the score is different. So you can argue special teams has contributed mightily to consecutive losses the last 2 weeks, and that comes down to what? That arrow always goes right to the coaches.
Yeah.
Every team. Beamer Ball, he's a great coach because they're phenomenal at special teams. Coaches always say you can tell how polished the team is because of special teams. I'm not saying this club lacks polish, although they do. I'm saying is the last 2 weeks they have. That and the penalties, they've really not played clean football, even though they're showing other stuff that maybe they're doing a little bit better. Like this stuff, it's like I'm dating myself again. I do this all the damn time.
Shocker.
But everybody's watched the Brady Bunch. The Bobby and Cindy teeter-totter episode. It's like when Cindy's up, Bobby's down. When Bobby's up, Cindy's down, even when they're eating those stupid sandwiches that Alice made for them. And here, the defense done some nice things. The offense is doing a little bit better. Gio has not thrown an interception in like 108 pass attempts now. But then the defense is giving up big chunks on third and fourth down, and they're having special teams mistakes, and they're having penalties that weren't issues before. So there's never everything moving along at the same time for this football team. It hadn't been the case all year, and that's why they sit here at 4-7. The other mistakes, the onside kick, I don't know why you give an offense that you can't stop. Duke scored 32 points. They only had 7 possessions. They punted once, didn't convert on a fourth down, which was the dumbest offensive play call in the history of the Western Hemisphere on that wide receiver pass play. I don't have any idea why on earth they ran that thing.
It's 4th and 1, too.
Yeah, I mean, how far into the playbook do you really need to go when you're basically doing 3 or 4 things and you're moving the ball all the time? That was just mind-boggling. They helped out the Tar Heels. Tar Heels didn't capitalize on it. The onside kick to start the half, it didn't make any sense. Why would you give Duke a short field? Why would you give him a short field? Just kick it off and try to make some stuff happen. I just thought it was a mistake. And then, of course, they give up a 2-point conversion. That's special teams as well. Now, they did get a 2-point conversion, so there's one for them. But all in all, the special teams rarely win you games. I have talked to lots of coaches, head and assistant, over the years, and all of them say special teams rarely win you games, but they can lose you games. Mm-hmm. I think we saw an example today where special teams sure as hell didn't help Carolina. Special teams hadn't helped Carolina win any games this year. They were sort of benign most of the time, which is kind of what you hope for because that's the minimum. And then if you could make a play on special teams, that's an enhancer. But the last 2 weeks, special teams have been costly. Today, it was really bad. They didn't get a punt block like a lot of Max teams, but some Max teams struggled the last couple of years on special teams. This club did it in other ways, and they added penalties into special teams too. So the lack of discipline, the lack of composure, the reacting emotionally instead of being more gathered together, all those components were at play, and kind of you weave in that with the special teams, the penalties, and this was a really, really bad day on that front. It was a game that could have been won had they not put themselves in so many binds because of the special teams mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the defense here in a second too, but I mean, you could even dumb it down more. I mean, if you want to just forget about the fact that essentially, 4 mistakes on special teams results indirectly in 29 points. If you want to break it down even more based on how the game went, I mean, that roughing the kicker by Marcus Allen. I mean, it was I know he's trying to make a play, but senior day experienced guy making that mistake. I mean, he misses the field goal, like you said. Duke goes down and scores and it's a 7-point game at the end of it. So again, it comes back to, I think when you're a bad team, when you're a struggling team, when you're a team that's not having a good season, one of the reasons you are not very good is because you shoot yourselves in the foot a lot. You're very self-destructive. I think it's funny. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you're a bad team. You do that a lot. The problem is if you weren't to do that, if you stop shooting yourselves in the foot all the time, I think you're looking at this team and say, okay, like that was a very, very winnable game for North Carolina, especially with how the offense was able to score 25 points, which might as well be 45 for them out how this season's gone. So again, I think it's got to be very frustrating from a Carolina perspective, especially when you're making those mistakes on special teams, because in the penalties too, like we've talked about, I feel like a lot of people, when you think of a Bill Belichick coach team in terms of being disciplined, not shooting yourselves in the foot, last 2 weeks in particular, and there's countless other examples you can look at, it's just been something again that has like plagued this team at very inopportune times. And that's just, I think, what a lot of people thought, at least you wouldn't be getting that with this coaching staff. And that just simply really hasn't been the case as it's gone on.
I know this will be an unpopular statement, but I'm not of the belief that, you should really add 2 wins to their total because of Cal and Virginia. And I'm saying no. because there's a lot of other plays that were part of that outcome too. Teams that are not very good find ways to lose. If you're not getting blown out, they find ways to lose. Well, they got blown out for a while. First 3 losses were all ugly blowouts. Then they kind of gathered a little bit. They made some progress, played a much weaker part of the schedule there for a while, aside from UVA. And although Cal, I guess, is ACC standards, Cal's okay. That was on the road. It was a Friday night. They had to fly across country. But the bottom line is bad teams find ways to lose. This happens over and over and over again. It goes back to 2018, your first year when we were on the other site, and Carolina lost a lot of close games, and Larry Fedora kept telling us, oh, we're close, we're really close. And then after the Duke game, when Daniel Jones ran for 947 yards and threw for a bunch of yards and just shredded them, and they could not get off the field, and Larry starts his press conference about how close they are, and I asked him, I said, Coach, at some point, when you lose and you're close all the time, are you really not that close? Because there are all kinds of different reasons. I'm going to look at this that way too. They're losing, and they've shown some areas of improvement. You can actually, fill a few cups with, okay, there's some decent things there. But most of the cups you can't fill because they continue to lose because they're finding ways to lose. Some of the cups that you didn't pay attention to previously, penalties, special teams, are now suddenly on the table and they're empty. And they're noticeably empty. There's like a halo over both of them saying, we're empty cups now. We were once cups that were benign and didn't hurt you. Now we're hurting you. It's like the giant bright red sore thumb. The cups are bright red and they're pulsating because of how sore they are. That's where this club is. They're finding ways to lose games. They force a 3rd and 16. Duke runs the ball off the right guard, back cuts. They get a 16-yard run. They have we're I guess morphing into the second one, but they were 5 for 6 on 4th down. They were 5 for 6 on 4th down today. I don't know what the 3rd down numbers were, but the 3rd down numbers are kind of skewed because getting a stop on 3rd down, I know Carolina's band plays that thing when they get a 3rd down stop. They should have held off a lot because the next snap was coming. I mean, Duke was essentially in 4-down territory almost all night.
All game, yeah.
And they punted once. And that was even like, you know what? Boy, it sure would be gutsy to go for it. And they probably thought about it, to be honest with you. Carolina couldn't get out the field. So the defense that has made some progress, a defense that was getting sacks, a defense that was getting pressure against lesser opponents did not do it enough today. The one time they did get pretty nice pressure on Mensah early in the game, he stepped away from the pressure, stepped into a throw, tight end's wide open. Kamari House just completely read it wrong. And they had a big play, 27 yards on 4th and 3 or whatever it was, 4th and 6. So they did enough things to hurt themselves and make monumental mistakes that it's just too hard to overcome. It nullified by far the best performance Gio Lopez has had as a Tar Heel. It nullified a phenomenal performance by Jordan Shipp and Kobe Pesar. It nullified the fact that this team, I think, showed a little more grit than they have in a lot of games this year because it looked like they were teetering on the edge of getting run out, and they didn't. And I think I think that they played with more pride than we've seen, maybe because the obvious that it's Duke, and there was some chippiness out there, which is good to see from these guys. But bad teams find ways to lose, whether you fumble the ball at the 1-yard line going into the end zone, whether you fumble the ball a week later in a similar situation, whether you get field goals blocked, whether you rough a kicker who misses a field goal and then the other team scores the next play, whether you give up a fake field goal for 26 yards and they score in the next play. That's what teams that aren't very good do. Football coaches will tell you too, in college football, maybe 140 offensive plays in a game, 145. It really comes down to about 8 to 12 deciding a game a lot of times, being real true difference makers. 12 to 16 maybe. Well, if you mark those plays today, how many of them were pro-Carolina plays that helped them, and how many of them were plays that hurt Carolina? I would say the overwhelming majority were plays that hurt Carolina, and that's why they lost this game.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, man. And I think just to talk about the defense a little bit more, you mentioned the 3rd down percentage. It was 5 for 6 on 4th down, 6 for 15 for Duke on 3rd down, so 11 for 21 overall. Controlled the time of possession, too. I thought that was one of the biggest things, especially in the first half, where pretty much every time Duke got the ball, barring the end of the half, they scored. It was 36 minutes to 24 minutes for the game. So 12 minutes in a difference in time of possession. Again, I think it felt like Carolina, in a lot of ways, because why that stat looks like that is because Carolina couldn't get off the field. I mean, that felt like the main storyline as someone who was sitting in the stands today, especially in the first half and going into the second half. I know it kind of morphed into special teams throughout the game, but it felt like the biggest thing that fans and people were talking about in the stands, the Carolina fans, was, man, the defense just isn't getting off the field. And I think we've now seen 2 weeks in a row in particular where what did we talk about going into Wake Forest? Okay, not nearly as good of an offense statistically as Duke, but what do they have? They have continuity. They have a Robbie Ashford, a quarterback who's played all season. They have guys that can make plays. They have a good running back. Okay, at least they have a little bit of continuity, which the likes of Syracuse and Stanford didn't when you look at the quarterback situation they had going into it. Then again, you played, as Bill Belichick talked about, I think it was evident today, despite him not having a fantastic stat line, a lot of that had to do with Duke's success running the ball, 175 yards on the ground, 5.3 yards per carry. Darian Mintz, I mean, Bill Belichick talked about it this week. He is the best quarterback Carolina will play this season. And I think his poise and kind of his ability to make plays out of nothing at times was also really evident today. But again, you're looking at the stat line and you're saying, I mean, the game isn't that different. 24 first downs to 18 first downs. I mean, 352 total yards to 305. Duke slight advantage there. Carolina had more passing yards than Duke did. 177 rushing yards to 101. So Duke did control that side pretty well. The penalties were huge for North Carolina as well. But it just felt like, again, 2 weeks in a row, opportunities on the defensive side of the ball to not only get off the field, which was the biggest storyline tonight, but just make those plays that we've seen this defense make earlier in the year. And they just couldn't do it tonight. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the defense we were always we were pinch of salt with them because of who they were playing. But I do think the last couple of weeks we've seen more of what this probably was the whole season in terms of, yeah, they're good, they're better, but they're not great. They're not great. And I think when you look at what Carolina's been offensively, and this is not rocket science, you need a defense that is great, not only against the likes of Syracuse, who lost 70-0, by the way, to Notre Dame today, but you also need them to be good against better offenses like this, a top 5 offense in the league like Duke. And I thought there was opportunities there, but man, when you don't get off the field, AJ, and you don't have a great offense, you were just begging to lose, especially when you just mix in a ton of special teams mistakes in there too. It's just not winning football at the end of the day.
7 possessions and 32 points. That's not good. And what did you say Duke was on third down?
Third down, they were 6 for 15. 11
so
for 21
really,
on third and fourth. So.
Yeah, but I'm gonna change that number because that Duke faced 15 third down situations. They advanced the ball 11 times. So 6 of those, they actually went for it on fourth down and got it. Okay. 5 of those, 6 of them, 1 of them that they didn't. So yeah, 5 of them they did. So you're 6 for 15, 6 plus 5 is 11. Your 15 is still 15. You can't get the fourth down without having a third down. So Duke was 11 for 15 in getting a first down of some kind every time it faced a third down situation, whether they got on that snap or the next snap. That's the defense not getting off the field. That's their job. Mm-hmm. In the end, the statistics are great. Their job is to get off the field, period. Mm-hmm. And they did not. And that was costly as well. Even with the statistics are kind of odd because there were a limited number of possessions in this game. Yeah. And Duke got a lot of solid chunk plays, but Duke, look at their first, 4 possessions. They had 10 plays, 12 plays, or 13 plays, 14 plays, 12 plays on their first 4 possessions. I mean, they were keeping the ball. They were milking the clock. That thing cruised by. We were into the second quarter, and I hadn't refilled my ice water yet.
It was quick, yeah.
So that means something. That says something. So the Tar Heels, when you make the mistakes that they made, 3 glowing areas that are defeat yourself football, shoot yourself in the foot football. Penalties, those were bad. Some of them meshed with special teams, that was bad. Some of them meshed with defense, that was bad in terms of getting off the field. So even the penalty after Duke's 2-point conversion, because they had one penalty at the end of the touchdown that gave Duke the ball at the 1, which is why Duke, I think, went ahead and went for 2. I guess maybe they went for 2 because they didn't want Carolina to score a touchdown and tie it with an extra point.
Mm-hmm.
But Carolina went for 2 because the ball was moved to the 1-yard line on its 2-point conversion. That's why Belichick actually went for 2 instead of running from 2.5. And then the penalty on the 2-point conversion meant that Duke kicked off from the 50. So instead of booting the ball and forcing Carolina to start at 25 with limited number of seconds left, the squib kick that Will Hardy returned, Carolina started at its own 16, 17 and used up another 12 seconds. So even that told Duke, okay, well, let's just squib it. We can squib it and keep them before the 25 and also use up some clock. So Duke was able to capitalize sort of on a higher end level than Carolina when Carolina made so many mistakes. And then, of course, the 3rd down and 4th down stuff, 4th down stuff, that was just bad. We were joking in a sense that when Duke had 3rd and long, it's like, hey, Duke's got the Tar Heels right where they want them. You know what that reminded me of?
What?
Reminded me of Gene Chizik's defenses.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Some of Jay Bateman's defenses, and on occasion, Jeff Collins' defense last year. So it was sort of a reminder of, hey, remember us?
Mm-hmm.
The ghosts of us still reside here, and they showed up today on 4th down.
Especially too, because I mean, we were talking about it a little off camera. You might remember some of the stats, but I mean, a lot of those 3rd and 4th down conversions were situations where Duke was at least going into 3rd down. I mean, it was 3rd and long, and Carolina still didn't get off the field. Yeah. You know, so there was just instances like that where it wasn't like, and there were situations where it was 3rd or 4th and short. There were a few other situations where Carolina, had a great opportunity to get off the field, and they give up these massive chunk plays. I forgot. I think it might have been.
It was like a 3rd and 18. There was a 12-yard play, so it was 4th and 6. And they converted the 4th and 6.
And there was one play where I think it was 3rd or 4th. There was one in the first half, I believe. I don't remember what drive it was, where you could tell all Duke was really trying to do on 3rd down was getting field goal position because it was so long. So they were so far away. I think it was 3rd and 16 or so, at least something like that. And Duke, they run the ball just to get better field position. They end up getting a first down off. They get like 20 yards on the run.
16 yards.
It was a
3rd and 16.
That's what
and
I thought.
They ran it over the right guard, basically. And the back cut, there was the discipline on that play defensively was really poor.
And that's why I brought that up because that not only was that a big factor, not obviously, but that, as you alluded to, reminded me even more of the defenses of old. Just even chunk plays where it's 3rd and long, you're not getting off the field in those situations. That hurts even more than it being a 3rd and 3 or a 4th and 2, where that's not good either. But when you're giving up these chunk plays when the other team's just trying to get into field goal range a little bit more off a run, it's like, oh man, you're just asking to lose these kind of matchups. So
it's losing football. Well, we saw
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Football.
Exactly.
We saw team fight. We saw team not go away, and we saw Gio play well. Paysor, Chip, etc. But we also just, by the grand scheme of things, they lost, and we're here to discuss why they lost. So they played losing football. They made too many mistakes that generally pull you into the direction of the L column.
And that is why Carolina is what it is at 4-7. Let's talk real quickly about what this means, AJ. Carolina, as I just mentioned, 4-7, one last game in Raleigh next Saturday, 2-5 in league play. So just looking at kind of ultimately how this season's going to end. You had two wins at home this season. One was against a FCS team in Richmond. That's the fewest at home since 2018. Back-to-back losing seasons in conference play. That's the first time since 17-18 seasons. First time since 2018, UNC will finish the regular season with a losing record. I mean, no matter what happens against State, best Carolina can finish is 5-7 in the regular season. And more than likely, I know it's not impossible at this point because there are certain teams with 5 wins. If they can win next weekend, they can still get in bowl games. But very unlikely Carolina is going to a bowl game this season. And that would be the first time since what? That would be going back to 2018 as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of records and stats and things you can read off that are not very good of what this team's been. But at the end of the day, I called it a disaster of a season. I stand by that because I think it does. I feel like the only thing, AJ, it feels like the only shining light that I hear Carolina fans talking about, maybe in defense of this staff, is, well, they've gotten better. And it's like, okay, maybe in certain ways, yeah, they have improved at times. I think some of that progress that we talked about maybe wasn't as real as we thought it was after the last couple of weeks and performances. But that's like the only kind of positive thing I see him throwing at this team is that. And I I keep going back to what we talked about. I keep going back to asking people on Twitter in the preseason, what would be an unacceptable season for North Carolina? Or what do you think Carolina's going to do this season? It was 8-4s. It was 9-3s. It was 10-2s. There was a lot of optimism coming into this season. So when you've got one game left, you just lost 2 in a row to 2 in-state teams. You're 4-7 on the year. You're going to, finish way below 500 in ACC play, essentially, no matter what. I just don't believe that's what Carolina fans signed up for. I don't believe that's what the university signed up for. And I don't believe that is what Bill Belichick and company thought they were walking into this year. So, again, I don't want to be super negative and pile on, but at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head a second ago. Carolina did not play winning enough football this year. And that is why they're in a situation where they're setting, again, all these kind of records again that haven't happened going back 6-7 seasons. So it's not the year any Carolina fan wanted. It's not the year the program wanted by any means. And I think the unfortunate part too is you never know what can happen in rivalry games. But I mean, is anybody walking into next Saturday with a ton of confidence that Carolina's going to go over to Raleigh and beat NC State? I don't think so. We all know how that rivalry has been the past few years as well. So it's just been a disappointing year. And I think I'm being very nice with my words there, saying disappointing. I think that's maybe more than fair.
We'll deal with State when we get into the week, although the State team from the last 2 weeks is beatable by this Carolina team.
Absolutely. Just like Duke was. They lost 3 out of 4 coming here, AJ.
This is the third time in the last 18 years Carolina will have a losing record in the regular season. Butch Davis in 2007 in his first year did, and when he inherited everything from Bunning and sort of moved stuff around. And since then, it was the 17 and 18 Fedora years when they were absolutely decimated with injuries. They had like 19 players that were injured for the season by the middle of October, lost for the season by the middle of October in 17. And the following year was after Shoegate and the weird stuff that Larry said, the ACC kickoff about we win wars because we play football and all that stuff. That they had a lot of injuries that year, and they bounced around at quarterback. They just couldn't really get settled, and they had a bad year. That's it. So for the people who keep score at home, for the people who are pro this coach or pro that coach or anti this coach or anti that coach, they are guaranteed a losing record in the regular season. Mm-hmm. And it's only happened in 17 and 18 since the 2007 campaign when they had a losing record in Butch's first year. So, it's not like there have been a bunch of 9, 10, 11 win seasons, but they have at least been a 500 or better program in the regular season, which looks like it's many, many time zones away right now. They don't look close to that, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen them play the best that I think today, honestly, even with the mistakes, because Gio moved the ball some and moved the chain some, I don't think they could play any better than they did today offensively. And they still lost at home, still only scored 25 points. So if that's the high end, then this defense has very little room for error. And when special teams screws things up and doesn't help, and when penalties get tacked on, then you lose games like this and look bad. So what does 4-7 for this team mean? You said it. I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago that this isn't, I think it was after Clemson, this isn't what they paid for. It's not what they paid for. No, you could be the staunchest Belichick defender and supporter that there is. And you have to be honest with yourself. This is not what the university paid for. This and all the stuff that comes with it. And that can't be avoided now because it's constantly on our plate. Whether we do something with it publicly or not is one thing. We generally don't, but it's all part of the scorecard now. Mm-hmm. The scorecard is here's one thing after another. And then if you at least win games and look good doing it, and you look like, hey, here's the greatest NFL coach of all time, no one's going to give a crap what the New York Post writes.
That's true. It's so true.
No one's going to care. No one's going to care about what some people determine personal foibles. No one's going to care. But when you go 4-7 against the easiest schedule of any power conference team, they're not going to play anybody. Well, they will. I guess Virginia will probably end up ranked. That'll be it. Mm-hmm. And Virginia.
Not world beaters, really, are they?
No. And anyone else is going to go close to being ranked. And they're going to have this kind of season, probably likely 4-8. And 4-8 with really, Charlotte's the worst team in FBS.
Yes.
Richmond's the middle of the road in the Patriot League in FCS. And honestly, if Syracuse, Boston College, and Stanford played our round robin right now, they'd all split and none of us would want to watch it.
It'd be 0-0.
That's how bad they are. So it's really bad. They have a chance to go out strong next week and get a feel-good win, finish 5-7, which at one point this season, the national media and some of us in our local realm here were saying this is the worst Carolina team we've ever seen. It's the worst power conference team in the country. They're not that. So give them credit for being better than Colorado and Wisconsin and Syracuse and Stanford and Boston College and some of those teams. And I'm not trying to be cute here. I'm being completely honest. So they aren't the worst team, and some people thought they were. But this isn't what anybody paid for. It's not why he came back. I asked him today because he's talked progress. Doesn't always like talk record. I said, so you got progress in this hand, record in this hand. What do you kind of weigh more? What do you look at more? Because you've talked progress. He kind of hemmed and hawed about it, and I think, the record's not we're not happy with that, but we have seen some things that we've gotten better at, but we got to get a lot better. And then I followed up by saying, what does 4-7 mean to you? And I'll have to go back and listen exactly what he said, but pretty much we got to be a lot better. That's not what he wanted. Okay. So he said it. For the rare occasions that he actually answers a question, it was pretty clear today that they're just not what he thought. And I think the disappointment in losing because the two areas of the team that had been pretty good for the most part. Remember a couple of weeks ago, you asked me one of these things, what do they do best? I said, well, they cover punts pretty well.
Yeah, that's where we were at.
Being honest, they do, and I guess they still do. That's one area that hasn't blown up in their face. I guess knock on that because still got a game to play. But this isn't what they're paying for. 5-7 with a win over State's not what they're paying for, but it makes people feel a lot better around here. Whether or not it happens, we'll find out. I would think they're going to open up like a touchdown underdog in Raleigh, and they should. And they can't make mistakes there because that place is going to be frothing at the mouth for them.
It's going to be a hornet's nest, man. It absolutely.
And the Belichick factor is going to raise the stakes. Can Carolina match that intensity? I thought they did a better job of matching Duke's intensity, rivalry intensity today than they did Wake Forest last week. So there's a small positive. But they're going to have to just like a rocket going to the moon, man. That's where they have to go on this one because it's going to be a different level. It's going to be something this group hadn't seen yet. So in terms of intensity, focus, fire, chippiness, hate, all that kind of stuff, which is part of what makes this stuff fun and beautiful, these guys have to match it. And through 11 games, they haven't really shown us that if they're going to match it, that they bring along the discipline with it. If you're going to match intensity and all that kind of stuff, you've got to know when the whistle blows, stop, right? Yeah. You got to know not to hit a field goal kicker. You got to know when the play is out of bounds, it's out of bounds. You got to know that stuff, man. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be prepared that they may fake. They got a 58.8% field goal kicker. He may fake it. And
Carolina had no clue.
Andrew Simpson was asked, did you think they were going to fake it? He said no.
You had no clue.
Bill was asked, do you think they were going to fake it? Well, yeah, of course, we thought they might fake it. They're prepared for this other stuff, and he's a pretty good kicker.
And that kicker was quick too, AJ. I'll give him a lot of credit. I mean, that guy was not. I've seen a lot slower kickers than that guy. That's all. I'll give him a little bit of credit on that run. It's just, Again,
what else can we say? Seriously, Jacob,
exactly.
There's not much more we can say about it.
Again, it's not piling on. It's just we would not be doing our jobs if we just skated around the fact that it's just not been a good year. And as you mentioned, AJ, it's not what people
looking at Geo stats. That's why I'm embarrassing myself with the reading glasses here.
No, you're fine, man. Pull up.
Geo was 21 for 27. So what that means is he has not thrown an interception in his last 108 pass attempts.
And no turnovers for either.
Give him some credit. Before we go off, give him some credit. I thought he checked down more tonight than we've seen him all year. He used his legs, and some of those runs weren't called runs. They weren't even RPOs. there's RPO because a lot of them were runs. They were runs to the tailback that he kept for himself. So he's reading certain things, and it's like an RRO instead of an RPO, right? Maybe there's an RPRO, run pass run option. Maybe that's what it was, but he made some pretty good reads. He did some pretty good stuff. He got sacked a few times, and I thought he ran to a couple of sacks. But Carolina's blown out tonight if Gio doesn't bring his best game of the season. So give him some props for that. 108 straight passes or 108 straight passes. I don't care what anybody thinks. He's only thrown interceptions in 2 different games since the opener against TCU. So, yeah, it's an issue at quarterback. It's not a strong point for this team. But he hasn't been completely awful like a lot of people think in the last 5 weeks. In fact, I think it's 5 straight 200-yard passing games. I know he's not Drake. He's not Sam. He's not even Jacoby in some ways. But at least he has shown some progress. And if we're going to dink on them for some of the other things, we at least need to prop that up. He deserves a little bit of kudos.
Yeah, I thought Gio, again, had one of his, if not his best game in Carolina, especially passing the ball. He was under pressure a lot, too. He got hit a lot tonight. Took a couple big shots. The touchdown pass he threw to Jordan Ship, it was wide open. He got his helmet taken off on that one. So I do think he deserves credit. I thought the most disappointing thing about the offense tonight, AJ, was just the last 2 drives. I mean, seriously, 2 drives in the game when Carolina kind of had an opportunity to either kind of move the ball down the field and extend their lead, or they needed to march down the field and tie the game again. You had 7 plays on 2 drives for negative 64 yards. I thought that was the most disappointing thing tonight, because
they had 312 yards.
Those Gio just took sacks back there, and it was just like, man, you got to do something. So if there's any asterisks to throw by what I thought was a pretty good night for the offense, I just thought those final couple drives, you were just shaking your head like, man, they couldn't do anything when they had to.
Yeah, we'll close by this because I got to get writing and you got to get this thing edited. And we'll do some more football stuff this week. I'm going to Fort Myers Monday.
Man, what a horrible place to be in November. Right?
Yeah, for basketball Tuesday and Thursday, come back Friday. We got state on Saturday, so we're gonna have
who would want to go to Fort Myers, Florida, in the middle of November, AJ? Who would ever want to do that?
I just might not come back.
I wouldn't blame you.
I'll let you know when I get there. But I
sailboat and just sail off.
So we're gonna do the football show a little bit earlier than usual this week. But gosh, what was I going to say now? I think I lost my train of thought.
We were just talking about the final 2 drives. Offense got better, but final 2 drives.
Carolina had 312 yards of offense, a few snaps into the fourth quarter, and finished with 305.
Yeah, tells you I need to know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, at the end of the day, you got to win football games. That's why you're hired. That's what I said when they hired Belichick, AJ. If he comes in and he wins football games, great hire. If he doesn't, then it'll be viewed a lot differently. So far, a disappointing start to his tenure.
So far,
how long that may last.
Viewed a lot differently, Jacob.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah. I think we wrap it up there. I want to hear what people think. I want to hear what people think in the comments. I could talk about this game for another 20 minutes, I feel like, because there's so many things that kind of went on in it. Entertaining game. Carolina had an opportunity. If you were neutral, I think it was a pretty fun game to watch, especially compared to a lot of other Carolina games this year. So
the Carolina Duke games have been bangers lately. As Jay Billis always says about basketball, they deliver. We were joking about how the game was competitive and stuff, that maybe Billis was with West Durham doing the color tonight because they've been good games for a while. You go back to the 19 Max first one in part 2 when Surratt had the interception on that jump pass.
I was on the field for that one. Yeah,
you were on the field shooting that one. So they've been playing some pretty good games. I think the Duke Carolina game means a lot more now than it did when 15 years ago. There was that long period where it didn't mean that much. 2012 was when we really started picking up. Gio had that fumble recovery that ran into the end zone that game. I covered that game.
I think I was at that one, funny enough, in the stands. That was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I was there. Yeah.
Duke won that night and became bowl eligible for the first time that century.
Yeah.
And they were my assignment that night, and they were actually more excited for being bowl eligible than being in North Carolina, which was pretty rare.
Weird. Yeah, I'm about to say that doesn't sound right, but
both were rare at that time, really.
Yeah, it's been a good rivalry in the recent years. You're absolutely right, but couple games in a row to forget. Carolina losing 2 in a row to Duke, and they want to get that victory bell back last season.
The fans, this place had way too many empty seats tonight.
It did. I thought the crowd was loud at times. It
was loud, but the visitor side
could have been more full. Yeah,
you sit on the visitor side. The visitor side had huge banks of empty seats.
Even the home side in the corners had some pretty empty holes in there as well, which was a little disappointing.
It's an indictment on the way things are. I totally get it. I'm not going to bash anybody for that. I get it. I
don't blame anybody.
I don't blame those that didn't show up, and I applaud those that did. And my friend Bruce Young and his wife Allison did. It was always nice to see them.
Absolutely,
I'm glad they showed up.
Yeah, I feel like they're the type that are always going to come. My dad's the same way. I mean, they could be 0-11. He's still going to come. So, yeah, man, disappointing night for North Carolina once again. But again, it's just been kind of one of those seasons for the Tar Heels. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of our Three Things post-game podcast. AJ, we appreciate you hopping on here. You got plenty of work to do. I got to get this podcast up as well. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think about the game, your main takeaways. Head on over to TarHeels247.com for all your post-game coverage from tonight's loss. And, as always, like, share, subscribe. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.